Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network, and we are back discussing Season 3, Episode 3 of The White Lotus on HBO, episode title, The Meaning of Dreams. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined by Liz Seiko.
Hello, DJ.
Hello, Liz. We were actually just talking right before we started recording about this, and you were like, there's so much that happened in this episode. There is a lot. We probably get the most out of all of our individual characters kind of opening themselves up a little bit more. But it has the lowest score in the history of White Lotus for reasons we can go into, or we don't have to go into, whatever. I'll leave that up to you. But regardless, and I know you're not the type of person, so sorry to always be this person for you, but I watched the preview ahead of time.
Oh, yeah, I did.
And it feels so much like a setup because next week looks like
they're all on the boat together.
So much shit's going to hit the fan.
Yeah.
So much shit is going to hit the fan next week. But we do get a lot of kind of conversing between certain characters. I want to start in particular with Rick and Chelsea, which I think is where we started last week with Zach. But Walton Goggins, to me, in this episode, we really see a lot of range from him.
So much.
I love him as an actor. I think I unfortunately I'm like one of the only people I feel like. But have you seen Fallout?
No.
Okay, I haven't either, but he was, nominated for it. People love him in it. So I haven't seen him in that, but I've seen him in other things. He's literally my favorite character in Righteous Gemstones, which I don't know if you watch, but he's hilarious. But in this episode, we start to see Rick open up. He has a second session with the therapist, and he talks about meditation. He talks about how his father was murdered, but he knew he was a good man. And he gets emotional and he gets so overworked that he's like, I need weed.
Yeah.
It's like, I need to get something that can like really settle me in. And I need to get away from all these feelings that I'm feeling right now because this is not why I'm here. And this is not what I need. So much of all that is suppressed. And then he gets his weed. Does he go to Bangkok or no? He doesn't go to Bangkok. He goes into town.
He just goes into town.
He goes into town
with Chelsea.
With Chelsea. She follows him. And they end up at a snake show. A show.
Cobra show.
Yes, they're showing all these different snakes, and amidst his kind of hallucinogenic state with the marijuana and seeing the cobra and seeing all these snakes locked up, and he goes, it's really sad seeing them all locked up. He runs out of the show and he lets all the snakes loose, and I had so much anxiety watching that scene. I am not a snake person, but I was just like, what is about to happen right now? And Chelsea gets bit by a cobra.
Yeah.
Crazy shit.
Goes to the hospital in Thailand.
Insanity. How did you feel about their storyline in this episode in particular and what we kind of get from Rick now, kind of especially his story's kind of building week by week. He's the character where like we're really starting to peel somebody open. Yeah. At least that's how my interpretation was.
No, I agree. I think I said this last episode, but I'm starting to episode 1. I feel like everybody had this solid mind that he was somehow a bad guy and like involved in the shooting that we're eventually going to get to, or he's trying to do some sort of damage to the like owners. But I don't know. The more that we see from him, a part of me just thinks that he has motive to connect with the owners of the hotel. But a part of me thinks that we're just going to see this middle-aged, balding man like go through this meditative, like spiritual journey in a way of opening himself up. And I think the whole like pillar in all of this is Chelsea. She is she's like, we're soulmates.
It's so funny.
It's just so endearing because then for like her to not be actually using him, but actually be in love with him just adds a whole nother layer that she sees something good in him, which can't make him just a completely bad guy. Even though he clearly thinks that he's like a bad guy because he always this whole episode, he kept saying, he's like, well, evil people like shouldn't be treated bad too. So in some way he thinks he is an evil person.
He's a broken person. And
so I think we're just seeing like him unfold so much that Mike White, I think, is throwing me off and is making me now think that he's actually not going to be involved in the shooting at all.
I don't think so either. I think there's like these little bits and pieces that you get where you can it's like a funny thing, and he says it kind of to be snarky back at Chelsea, but then she like smiles, just like, I knew we were always meant to be together. So it's like I love when she's like, I'm an Aries, and she's like, you know,
oh, Scorpios.
Yeah, and then she goes, Walton Goggins, then Rick goes, he's like, yeah, he goes, our signs aren't compatible, and then she's like, okay, I know what you're doing here, and that's why I love you. And I'm just like, their dynamic is so interesting.
So good. She's
it's
also,
so good.
You know what it is?
She's great. Aimee Lua too.
She's hysterical in this. Just her eating the watermelon, watching him talk to the owner of the hotel. There's so much facial expressions going on with her. She's killing this role. And I just really love the comparison of him, who clearly has so much weight on his shoulders, in contrast her, who's like a very airy, like walking around just trying to make him happy at the end of the day.
I think that part of it, like we talked about last week about the three catty females, which we'll get to, and obviously there's the Jason Isaacs family and things like that. But the thing with me that I've taken away too from this so far, this series and the storylines and the characters, is like Walton Goggins specifically talked about how it was really important to him to foster this the chemistry that they have together. And I think they have the best chemistry of the cast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can see, like, even like you're talking about, the way that Aimee Lou Wood just kind of like observes and like makes certain looks. Like, I love the little asides we get from the dinner scene between the two of them. The one girl, what's her is it Naomi? Chloe. And then obviously what's his name from the first season? Greg. Who goes by Gary in this season. Mm-hmm. But like, even those scenes, like when he's like, oh, we're going on a boat, and she's like, yes, we're going on a boat.
She takes like one small baby bite. She's like, yeah, it's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's just like all of it I think is really good. But there's a lot to kind of unravel with that. We actually didn't discuss that first scene we get with him in this episode, where he goes to the hotel owner and he Shri Tala, and he discusses, well, he fakes that he's a music producer.
He's a producer.
And he goes, I'm going to meet a friend in Bangkok tomorrow. And she's like, I'm headed there tonight. He's like, great. She gives him his card. Christian Friedel has his own thoughts. You can see he's kind of thinking things through and like, this seems odd to me. What are your thoughts on that? And the obvious, I mean, we know he wants to get to her husband, but do we have any theories, any ideas of like what's going to happen now? Especially if you think he's going to kind of be the character that goes through this spiritual awakening this season.
So a theory I do have is that he keeps talking about his father who was murdered. And then in this episode, in the meditation, he says at the end, did he say like, I want satisfaction? I think isn't that the verbiage that he
Might
said?
Be. Yeah.
And so part of me is like, is this owner somehow involved in like the murder of his father? And that's why he's seeking out this owner. This is a complete theory. There's nothing to back this up right now, just besides me going.
That's actually a great theory, though.
So part of me thinks that he's going after this guy. I don't know if necessarily to kill him in like cold blood for his father's murder, but then a part of me is like, maybe through this meditation, he can be led to like forgiveness and being like, you killed my father, but I forgive you now. I don't know.
Interesting. Well, because so we also know it's interesting because when him and Greg talk about what they do for work, they say a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Greg says that, and then the guy, Rick's just like, okay, like, and then so weird.
But he says the same thing, doesn't he? He goes a little bit of that, and he goes,
there's
a lot of work.
More of like a cheeky, like, okay, you're not going to tell me, I'm not going to tell you.
Yes, but we really don't have an indication of what Rick does.
No.
And he has a lot of money.
Yeah.
And part of me has the idea of maybe he's a fixer. He could be a fixer for high leverage people, but I do think,
what do you mean by fixer, like
an assassin for hire, essentially, or like somebody.
He doesn't give me assassin.
Not necessarily assassin, but maybe
and like red. Like he.
I think about it like
stressed out to be a killer.
Maybe, but I think that might be what he's fighting within himself. I think, and I do. I love that you brought up that theory because I haven't thought about it. I haven't seen it anywhere, but I do think part of, again, Mike White is such a great writer. He puts things in places that obviously are going to have payoffs later. Him bringing to the forefront that his father was a good man, even though he was murdered, makes me think that his father might have been protecting someone a long time ago in Thailand, potentially. And it could have been something where his father was not the intended person to be murdered.
But he's still
crossfire. Yes. And maybe the person that killed him might have been the hotel owner.
Or he was protecting the hotel owner in a way.
Could be something like that. Could be something like that. So there's a lot up in the air with that, and we have to see kind of what happens. They did show in the beginning of the season when they previewed the season, they showed like it looked to be Bangkok. He's like he's like heads up against glass in a taxi, and it like you see a big city in the background.
Well, that was my next question. Do you think he actually goes to Bangkok, or do you think he goes on the boat and stays with Chelsea? I mean, he just got her almost killed by releasing these snakes.
I think he's going.
Have no loyalty.
No, I think he's going. I don't think it's that though. Like I don't know. It's weird. I think there is that layer to him where we know that he has some sort of affection for her, because even when she gets bit by the snake, he actually cares for the first time in I guess the whole season, besides maybe their intimate moment last week in the bedroom. But even that could just be sexual in nature, but you're at least seeing something different between their characters. But that's like pure like, no, like, where are you going?
Yeah.
Like, you're taking her, like, and they're like, we're going to the hospital, and he gets in a taxi. He could have just stayed and been like, she'll figure it out. But he like gets in a taxi, he's like, go to the hospital now. So there's obvious like,
he does care for her on a certain level.
Yes. So, but I still think he's there for this mission. I think every single episode, and we're going to continue to see this until we get to the end. Every single episode we wake up and he's like, just another day in paradise. And he's so miserable.
So miserable. And he just needs to find this man.
Yeah. So
which, I don't know. I think it's connected somehow. And the other thing is, so for me, Rick is now way less creepy or divisive than Greg is. Greg is a lying liar who is just a schemy little
biatch?
Yeah.
You can say it, Liz.
Well, I also, actually, side note, I love the references to Tanya in this episode.
What do you mean? Like, just bring her back to like...
So when Chelsea and Chloe are by the pool tanning, and Chloe's talking about like his ex like wife, and he's like, she's like, she was some nut who like drowned herself on a boat. And it's like, no, we know what happened.
Yes.
That's not what happened. And so like I loved that reference. And then we had Belinda talking
when she finally comes up to them.
Yeah, where she's talking, she's like, this lady that I met like ran away with some guy. And so I just love that we're starting to get more of Tanya in the story, which means that Greg's somehow completely going to get wrapped up into it too.
Yeah, I still think, and I think I talked about this when we did the premiere episode for the season, it's so crazy to me that Greg is the connective tissue through 3 seasons of the show. And John Grease does such a great job of just being so elusive, especially in this season. Like, his character obviously has I don't know if he has a guiltiness to him. He doesn't, but it's just like his character is so much more like,
a man of few words.
A man of few words. He seems kind of miserable by everything like under the sun, regardless of how much money he has, and he's dating a woman half his age. Like, it doesn't, none of it matters to him. Which
it could be that he like got all of this money and like this fortune, and he's still miserable, and it's like, money doesn't necessarily buy you happiness at the end of the day.
Well, it also feels like his relationship, like with Tom Hollander's character, was one that was obviously near and dear to him. They partied together for decades, and like they were together since they were like in their 20s, and the whole plot was that they were all going to get away with the money, and they didn't. He lost his people, so to speak, in Tanya's murderous spree. So like there's a lot to unpack with that. The Belinda and Greg stuff is now one of the most intriguing storylines to me. Not that it wasn't, obviously, when she first sees him in the first episode, but like, she is the type of woman of integrity that like she's gonna need to get an answer. And coming with the opening of the season with her son being the one to discover the body is also like crazy to think about, because someone's got to be wrapped up in this, like, some way, shape, or form.
I'm still sticking with who I originally think is the dead body, which is
the body, Gaitok.
Gaitok.
Yeah, I still feel that way as of right now, but I'm starting to think it could be Mr. Ratliff.
Why? Just by like
their storyline is it? Do you want to transition to the Ratliffs?
Yeah, let's go into it. Why,
so
what leads you to that?
Well,
thought?
So Jason Isaacs' character, who I was really excited going into this season, and he's a great actor. But so much of his character is just Twitter's actually like mad at their storyline.
Really? Why?
I think more because they're like, I don't give a shit what's happening with this guy. Like they're not making it intriguing enough for the audience because it's the same thing. He's getting on the phone. He's worried. He's getting on the phone. He's worried. Now the phones aren't even, technology is not going to be a factor in what he's going through. But all he does this episode is he has the conversation with Saxon, and then he takes a sleeping pill and goes to bed. And it seems like that's going to be a storyline with him, is that he's going to be addicted to these pills because he just needs to shut off his brain, and it's the only way he's going to be able to not think about them. Just there's like, I don't know what it is about him, but I also think it would be too cookie cutter to just be like, yeah, he just kills himself. Or like, I don't know how that would happen. Like, I don't know if he's going to try to be like a same way we said like Gaitok could be a hero. Is it going to be a situation in which he's like, you know what, fuck it, I'd rather be dead anyway, and throws himself in the line of fire for somebody else, which could be his wife. It could be, who knows who it could be. I mean, we start to get the layers here with Saxon and Chloe, which could also mean that, who knows, maybe Greg is involved in a potential shooting towards Saxon, throws himself in front of it. Would be crazy, but would be very White Lotus-esque. So
yeah, it would be.
Ratliff is like working his way up my murdered power rankings.
He doesn't.
I think I can see it happening.
I just don't know if he is
important enough as of a character.
I think that their family has more to like unfold. Because like, okay, so you said like maybe he sacrifices himself for his wife. To be honest, I feel like there's like no love really between him and his wife. Like they literally, they don't kiss at all. They're not.
There's no intimacy.
There's no intimacy. There's nothing to really lead to them being like passionate with each other besides just that they're a family that have children together, and that he has a ton of money and she clearly just wants to be on pills all day and wants to be like a riot.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's, honestly, I don't picture Mike White writing like a redemption arc for Tim's character.
But is that a redemption arc? Or is it more just a tragic flaw of who he is? And he's like, at the end of the day, I still need to be a hero to my family.
I don't think he gives a shit about his family. Because why?
I disagree with that.
Why?
I disagree with that because I think at the end of the day, and it could be a surface level care, but it's something in the fact that like he knows that if his family was wrapped up in what he's wrapped up in, it would destroy them. And I think at the end of the day, that's a dynamic that he wants to keep, whether it's just for the sake of comfortability and just like keep on rolling with the punches. But I can't see it be something in which like he doesn't. More things need to unfold, like you said. We still kind of need to see more with their family. So I'm not over their storyline or anything, but I can at least understand the criticism of like every time we see this character, he's on the phone. Like that's been his character.
Agree. Like
for 3
there really
episodes.
hasn't been much progression, but then also I think that, I mean, for me, this was a bigger episode that gave their family unit just like a change of pace because now without the phones being there, we will see them having more conversation and more interaction with each other. I think what they're leading to, and this is just like a guess of mine, is that one of the more important characters of that family member is going to be Lachlan.
Yeah, I mean, well, a lot's going to come out with his sexuality, it seems like. It's addressed again in this episode. Yeah,
his sexuality, but also just like like how they said in his posture class, how he's like, oh, you seem like a people pleaser, but like, what's your truth? He could literally, I could totally see him just one day being done with his family and calling them all out on their bullshit.
I could see that.
Of being like, Mom, you're a pill popping like nut. Dad, you clearly have some like problems going on that you're lying to us about. Saxton, you're just a douchebag who has like sexual perversions. Yeah. And then his sister, I don't know about his sister yet. A part of me thinks that they might go the route of like kind of like fetishing other people's cultures and religions with her a bit. I think that's the route that they could go, but I feel like we haven't seen enough from her yet either.
Yeah, they definitely need. They're the ones that need the most attention. I feel like going forward,
there's a lot of plot holes still.
But I like how you brought up how you're like it's just giving all of them a change of pace. And that you mean with the phones, or do you mean just in general with all the characters? Because I feel like every single character has something in this episode that completely changes what their forward progression is going to be. Even from the opening of the episode with Parker Posey's character, like I think that we might see their characters flip.
In what way?
Like how like he's like, honey, like you shouldn't be taking those pills, and she starts having these nightmares with the tsunamis. And I think she might, and again, it could be a comedic thing, but she could just be like, these pills are causing all these problems, I need to stop taking these pills. And then he's the one that's now taking, because again in the preview you could see in the preview that he starts becoming addicted to the pills. He starts becoming like he needs them to operate.
Well, and what happens when he uses them all and then she doesn't have her little pills to take?
Leads to conflict too.
Leads to major conflict.
Yeah.
If she's used to taking these every day and then all of a sudden can't have them.
She takes them multiple times a day.
Multiple times a day. And she's, I'm not addicted, but whenever I need one, I'll take one. Like, if that woman does not get her morning pill.
Oh, we might see something crazy.
We might see... She might be the shooter for all we know.
That'd be crazy.
She might be the shooter.
That'd be crazy. That'd be actually
it's just if
wild.
she's really been on these pills for this long and then all of a sudden he uses, if from what you're saying, it sounds like he's becomes pretty addicted to them.
Do you think we got a payoff with her and Kate?
No, I think that was just...
You really think that was just like a fun little aside for everyone to be like...
Maybe we get one more interaction between them, but I don't think it's going to accumulate to anything that's like earth-shattering for the series.
I'm still so intrigued by that. It was such an awkward interaction.
I think it was just to show more about Kate, honestly.
Oh, being insecure. Yeah, you did say that, yeah.
And... which we see in this episode.
Yeah.
She is now officially the one out of the group. Like,
well, we get this every episode, though. We've gotten this now every single episode. Every woman has been on the outside of a conversation between two of the three. Yes. Every single episode. The first episode, it's Lori. The second episode, it's Jacqueline. Third episode, it's Kate. And we start to see that kind of happening. But I do think Kate might be the only one that
took it badly, seeing them talk about her.
But hears it, too. Or at least that's how it kind of comes off.
No, because I think who is it? Leslie. She hears them from the other room, but she's like, whatever, because she's probably used to people. She's
Lori,
famous.
you mean, right?
No, Leslie.
Leslie.
Isn't that the other girl's name?
Michelle Monaghan's character?
Yeah,
it's Jacqueline.
Oh, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
Why did I get Leslie? Jacqueline, she hears them like when she's in the other room reading that magazine, and I think she's just like, whatever, they're talking about me, what's new, what else is new, because she's a famous actor, so she's used to people probably talking about her. But I think Kate is just reacting to it the worst.
Well, yeah, 100%.
Because she's clearly the most insecure and wants to be like, she doesn't want to be transparent with her friends. She wants to be perceived as like, oh, I'm some like rich, hot, gorgeous woman that has everything together. And the fact that her friends are gossiping about her, I think is like eating away at her.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, so I kind of picture her character spiraling the most.
Out of the whole cast?
No, out of those three.
Oh, out of those three? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think so too. There's more to kind of unravel too with Lori, I think, though, too. Jacqueline's pushing having an affair. Is it an affair though, or is she like still married? No, she's divorced, right?
We're having like a fling.
Yes, a fling. Yeah. But having a fling with Valentine, and I think something could come of that too. I think Lori can maybe take her time with it and not necessarily kind of indulge in that, and then we might get to a point where Jacqueline's like, "Yeah, I slept with him last night." And then Lori's like,
Jacqueline's gonna sleep with him.
I think it's a possibility.
Okay.
I think, but she could just think, she's like, you didn't, like, we brought this up day 2 of the vacation. You didn't take advantage, and he made a move on me, and then we can have the real unravel, like the big cat fight at the end. I'm just saying I can see it happening.
I don't know, but I just know something crazy is gonna happen between, or maybe not, and maybe they are just gonna be those types of women that just at the end of it, they're posting and they're like, greatest girls trip of our lives. Like me and my girls, even though they hate each other clearly.
Yeah. I think you still need a little bit more though than them just being catty with each other.
I don't know.
There needs to be some sort of unraveling because they're usually, I feel like with every group within White Lotus, there's always something. It could be a reawakening.
Not necessarily, because wasn't it with Megan Fahey's character last season? Her and her husband just like walk away.
She discovers the body though.
Yeah, but she doesn't like.
But that's a big thing.
Okay, what if? Well, I mean,
she also she also brings Aubrey Plaza's husband to like a way to kind of be like, we can, if you want to do something, like there's at least something leading to something.
Yeah, but like I'm talking about leaving the resort, like they're not changed people.
I could see
that. I don't think these three ladies are gonna walk away changed by Thailand. Unless they're a part of the shooting, but I still don't think they're going to be a major part of the shooting.
I don't think so
they're
either.
Like the catty, annoying, hysterical like conversations to watch, but I don't know if they're going to be part of like the bigger circle.
That's fair. I mean, we don't get a lot with them this episode except for kind of trying to
we get the conversation of them talking about like their political stances, which I think was an incredibly written scene.
I do too.
Like Mike White is he's really hitting all the dots of.
It feels like a very real conversation that happens amongst people.
Every conversation that these three friends have had just feel very real, very like conversations I've either been a part of or have witnessed almost. And so I think that's why a lot of people are also loving
resonating with them. Yeah.
Yes, because it feels really real and honest. And that. Also, he's not pushing with his writing, like how the audience should be feeling walk away from those scenes. It's just making us feel like awkward and that we're watching something that is awkward for those people also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think again, I love the dynamic between the three women.
Mm-hmm.
There's part of me I think this season's moving a little bit slower than I'd like. But I know it's kind of the.
I think that's just White Lotus.
It is White Lotus.
And I think the only reason that people expected more was because of how big of like an ending it was on the last season.
Mm-hmm.
That people thought it was going to be like this crazy Thailand.
I also think
adventure.
part of it, we're covering both shows, so this is not for the White Lotus audience, but like watching Severance and this
at the same
within
time.
days of each other and like them being on the same release schedule, like. To me, and we're at different points in the season. Like Severance, we have the last 3 episodes. White Lotus, we're 3 episodes in.
Yes.
But like right now, I'm like so much more intrigued by like what's happening with Severance, and I'm like we're finally getting real answers, and we're learning things about origins, and it's like even things with like the Ratliffs now. Like I feel like I need to know more still about all of them, and like we've now spent 3 hours with these people again, scattered amongst a 50. Like 50-minute to hour runtime. But there's certain characters like that I would like to know. Like their whole family dynamic, we need to know a little bit more. Gaitok and Mook kind of get sidelined in this episode too. Like we haven't even really brought them up because nothing really happens. We see that Gaitok.
He asks to be a bodyguard.
He does ask to be a bodyguard, and he has I think the more important conversation is the one that he has with
the
bodyguards that you see Mook talking to in the premiere, that he's like, you shouldn't be talking to those guys. Why are you talking to them? And they call him a pussy, and they're like, you're you could have been fired. Like the only reason you weren't fired is because Sri Tala actually likes you. Like,
but it sounds like he might get fired in the next episode.
Yeah, that he has an interaction with, I guess, who's the head of the security for the hotel. Mook really gets sidelined this episode. She has one conversation, and then there's nothing else with her. So I'm hoping for a little bit more with that. But again, this is an ensemble show. You have to fit so much in. I think I feel like through 3 episodes, this is the least intrigued I've been with our ensemble. Like I still want more. Whole. Yeah, like I'm still waiting for certain shoes to drop, and I'm still like the pacing of this season is a little bit slower than. Again, I'd have to go back and watch seasons 1 and 2 to kind of see where I was at.
See, I feel like
season 1 was I think season 1 it ramped it up a lot in the beginning, and then it had kind of.
The only reason I think it ramped up was because we've never really seen a show like this before. I think that it's pretty spot on with how the past 2 seasons have been.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, we're only 3 episodes, although it is an 8-episode season. It's
So-
not fully 10.
Which I did, and I
So we're
think
almost halfway done.
I think so much of this episode is set up, and I think with the boat,
It's going to be a big episode.
there's going to be a lot of shit hitting the fan, so to speak, and there's going to be a lot of characters being together in the same place. We're going to obviously see other characters. So is everybody on the boat? We know Rick
the
and
girls, not the friends, I think.
yes, but the Ratliffs are going on the boat.
Yep.
And Rick and Chelsea are supposed to be going on the boat, and then we obviously have Greg.
And Chloe.
Yeah, but then we're the Gaitok and Mook are obviously not going to be on the boat, and neither is Belinda.
Really, the big drama is going to be like
The Ratliffs and
Greg, Saxton, and Chloe, and like that weird like love triangle that just came out of nowhere.
yeah,
And then also like with Saxton being like, yeah, we're gonna get you laid to like his younger brother. Like, is that actually gonna be something that he's like pursuing? And then does his brother eventually be like stick up for himself of like, leave me alone?
yeah. Well, then we also have Saxon has an interaction with Tim, and is like, "What's going on at work?" Like, he's the first person
Oh,
to
yeah.
really question, like, and be like, "What's going on?" And I think there might be some like breadcrumbs leading to that. Like, Saxon might be the one to realize something before he does.
Yeah, but now that he doesn't have his phone,
Yeah, but that doesn't mean, like, I don't know. Maybe he has an affair with Chloe, and then
is
Chloe
like, "Can I
says
have your
something.
phone?"
Chloe has her phone.
Say something in what? Like what?
I could see that being a reveal. Like, I could see that Saxon and Chloe might have like an affair, a
Like him
fling,
being like, oh, I'm a big known, like I work for this big company.
or it could be like a morning after kind of thing, like where they're like laying together in bed, and she's like just scrolling, and then she's like, "Isn't this your like dad?" And then it becomes like a whole thing where it starts to unravel that way.
It seems a little too easy though for White Lotus.
Yeah, that's fair. But again, some things towards the end, 1 or 2 storylines have to be a little bit easier to kind of. There's so much that needs to get wrapped up with all those characters.
Though I think it's gonna be.
That's going to be the easier part.
Mm-hmm. I think like
I hope so, because if the Ratliffs thing kind of ends easy, it's like that was maybe the most
many of them for it
boring
to end
storyline
easy.
for
Yeah.
White Lotus. But
I think she's gonna have a detox, like catastrophe.
yeah, I could see
If
it.
he's eating up these pills,
Not good.
not good.
Not good for Parker Posey. Anything else? I feel like we covered pretty much the whole episode.
No, I don't think so. I'm excited for the next episode just to see what
Mid-season,
happens.
yeah. So we're gonna hit an apex point at some point next week. But that's our review of episode 3 of season 3 of The White Lotus. Let us know in the comments, what are your guys' thoughts on the episode? Again, more theories on who you think the body might be, things going forward that we could see unfold with these characters. We'd love to have a conversation with you guys in the comments on your thoughts. Liz and I are constantly checking the comments for the ones we're on, obviously, so we'd love to have a conversation with you guys. Be sure to leave a comment. It helps us with the algorithm and everything else going forward. Give this video a like. You guys could subscribe to us. Again, if you guys may, we're covering a bunch of things on the channel right now. As we already said, we're covering Severance right now. Me and Vinny are getting ready to cover Daredevil Born Again. We have reviews upcoming for Mickey 17. We have the Monkey review up right now. We just did our reaction to the Oscars recently. So there's tons of stuff for you guys to check out. And if you guys want to follow us on social media, all that information is below me in the video right now. And it's also in our YouTube description. You guys, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on Facebook, we're on Threads. You guys can follow us anywhere and everywhere. And be sure to share this with your friends and family. Just signing off, I'm Darian Scalamoni.
I'm Liz Seiko.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is the culture.